Wow. First video of 2026, huh? I honestly wasn't expecting the first video of here to be part 2 of a series I literally started last year. Okay, sorry, I'll stop with the bad jokes. But in all realness, hello my fellow nerds and welcome back to the series where I go over this absolute mess of a roster that I had built all this time ago. So, for those of you who haven't seen part 1, which literally started at the end of last year, I'm actually doing a series where I go over every character that I've ever done for or at least made a Smash moveset for when Amino Apps was still a thing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you go and watch part 1 first so that you guys are all caught up. No, go ahead, I'll wait. Okay, we good? Alright, so last video I actually covered the first row, so right now we're actually going to be moving on to the second row of characters. So this series is going to be a very long one, and I'm going to have it looks like that if my math is right, we're going to have at least 7 episodes, have at least 6, maybe 7 episodes if I have to count the Pokemon trainers as their own separate ones. But I'm pretty sure you guys get the gist. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the second row's explanations. Kratos. Okay, so Kratos was actually kind of an easy one to do when it comes to movesets because, my god, he has so many games to pull from. Because most of the games, of course, come from the original games of God of Wars 1 through 3, and I guess the PSP games as well, or whatever other side games that he had. But I mostly pulled from his most recent appearances in God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. And at least that's what I wanted to do initially. Of course, I gave him his powers from the other older games, like Hermes' boots for his side special, Icarus' wings for his up special, and the neutral special actually had two different options, where it could either be the Leviathan axe or Apollo's bow. To which, honestly, I don't really know what I was thinking when it came to that moveset. But all I know is I think I made Kratos a bit too overpowered because he was one of the only characters I made that was able to run up walls, which yeah, is kind of applicable on most stages because most stages do have walls. And looking back on it, I kind of thought I should have made Kratos' moveset a bit more streamlined. But this was during the time of Smash Bros. 4, and custom moves were the big thing in that game. So having a custom moveset, giving Kratos 3 options for his 4 specials, gives him, well, of course, 12 moves, like everyone else in Smash 4. But since custom moves are only a thing for the Mii's and Ultimates, yeah, honestly, I think if I had to make this moveset again, I would probably make it more streamlined so that it's more to the present day Kratos that we see in God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, rather than the one that we see in the original games. And yes, he would still have his Blade of Chaos, of course. Why would I not? Why would I not give him those? It's basically who he is, but not really, because okay, so for those of you who don't know God of War lore, Kratos essentially is trying to move on from his past, so he doesn't really want to look back on it. It's actually a very simple thing to understand because, well, if you killed multiple gods, except for Aphrodite for two obvious reasons, then you probably want to move on from your past, start a new life, and just be immortal for once in your life. And all Kratos has ever been was a warrior. So it's nice for him to actually settle down and find the time to actually start a family. And we enter his son, of course, Atreus. His son Atreus is probably one of my favorite characters in the God of War series because you get to see him trying to as a kid, but then you see him as a teenager, and you're just trying to see him grow up, find out who he is, what he's supposed to do. But at the same time, Kratos is trying to deny him of doing that, so that they can both live a peaceful life that Kratos wanted. But knowing his luck, he kind of tends to find trouble. He doesn't really find trouble. Trouble tends to just find him nowadays. Not even to mention, I haven't even gone too far into the moveset yet. And no, I have not actually drawn out his palettes just yet. I'll probably post any palettes that I haven't drawn in this series on my community tab if I am able to. But but when I thought about his color palettes, I thought that maybe I could give him some palettes that he would have from his days in Mortal Kombat 2011, or was it 2009 one? No, I'm pretty sure it was Mortal Kombat 9 that he was in. Yeah. So when it came to the palettes, I of course gave him a blue, green, and yellow alts, which I guess could be references to a few things. But of course, I wanted to give him a color alt that references his father Zeus, his son Atreus, and of course a darker alt with very bright red accents to reference Fear Kratos. You know, the Kratos that you see in the dream world nightmares that he tends to have. And I thought those palettes actually worked pretty well, to be honest. And I can't really go back to look at the palettes because again, Amino is dead. So I basically have to rely on my memory. And honestly, if I were to streamline his moveset, I probably would have just given him the Leviathan Axe as a neutral special. Well, as a neutral special, so that you charge it up, you throw, and then you release the button to throw it, and then when you press the button again, he calls it back. It's kind of like some sort of he sort of has a pretty heavy combo game, while also being a heavy character. And usually I know that heavy characters and combos don't really go hand in hand, unless the heavy character is the one getting hit by the combo, but I think Kratos is one character that could pull it off. I sort of imagine him as a heavyweight character with a bit slow but still pretty fast mobility, kind of medium speed, around the same speed as I want to say Byleth, maybe Ike. I'm not sure. and it wouldn't really make sense if I didn't give him a final smash that is just absolutely brutal. Like, sure, I could have given him one of his fatality moves from Mortal Kombat, but this is Smash Bros. We're talking about. Smash Bros. Has no blood graphics, except for that one time in Master Hand and Brawl Subspace Emissary. I don't even know if those count as blood graphics. It was like little dark splotches on Master Hand. So I don't know, maybe. But of course, I think his Kratos' final smash could probably be something that he does in God of War 2018. Maybe it could be one of his ruin attacks that he does, or maybe it could also be just some sort of thing with the Blade of Olympus and a cinematic final smash of sorts. Honestly, I think the Blade of Olympus just makes more sense, especially since we actually get to use it during the God of War Ragnarok. What was it? Valhalla DLC. That's it. It was the Valhalla DLC, which turns the game into a roguelike of sorts. Looking at my mental moveset, if memories of making the moveset, I kind of like how Kratos came out. He was the first one in this row, and he's already kind of a really good character. And then we move on to the next one, which is a far less serious character than Kratos. Maxwell. So Maxwell was probably the next very, very, very complicated moveset that I had to make for the series. I was requested by someone when I made this moveset, and honestly, doing my research about it, there was so much that I could do for his moveset. It's not even funny. Like it's kind of like the Steve of my roster, if you really want to get into it like that. Although I wouldn't say he's as overpowered. But let's be real, Steve isn't actually overpowered anyway. He's not the best character in the game, and I will not be changing my mind about it. But anyways, back to Maxwell. I'd probably say Maxwell is far more creative of a character than I initially intended, because, well, just look at the game he comes from, Scribblenauts, a game where you could literally create anything, and I mean anything, as long as it's kid-friendly at least, or family-friendly, I should say. Like you can summon a T-Rex, Anvil, security system. You can summon other characters if you so wanted to. And if I had to make a moveset for him now, I don't think I could, because he sort of represents the same question that comes to mind when it comes to making like Steve's moveset for Ultimate. How do you make a moveset out of infinity? How do you characterize infinity? And how do you simplify it? That's something that you just can't really do. Because with Steve, it's easy. It's just small actions that actually have a lot of meaning or impact behind them. Maxwell is a bunch of actions that always have some sort of meaning behind them, whether it's stupid or not. And I know that one phrase, just because it's stupid, doesn't mean it won't work. Or was it something like, is if it always works, is it really stupid? But Maxwell is the kind of would have the kind of moveset that just I don't know. I honestly don't know what I was thinking back then, because Maxwell is just one of those characters that you can't really make a Smash moveset for. I mean, sure he would work. He could work as an assist trophy, similar to Nikki, the one character that actually came back in Smash 4 and Ultimate as an assist trophy. But when it comes to Maxwell, you'd have to literally type words out in order to do things that he in his games. So if he were at Smash Bros. Moveset, I probably would have streamlined that so that each of his attacks do a specific thing, which honestly kind of does a bit of a disservice towards Scribblenauts, because Scribblenauts is a series of literally infinite possibilities. You have a notebook, you have a pencil, do whatever you want, go nuts. But of course I had to make his final smash a T-Rex because it just makes more sense, and it was one of the first big things that we see him summon. And not to mention that Maxwell is just one of those interesting characters that you honestly wouldn't really be able to think of a moveset for today, even if you were paid to, because he's just that infinite. Seriously, put this guy against Steve and let's see what happens. I actually kind of want to see that kind of match. Let's see what happens. Would Steve beat this guy or would he win? Let me know in the comments who you think would actually win between Maxwell and Steve. But moving on to the next one, Penguin. Okay, honestly, I don't know what I was thinking with this character. I just honestly don't really know what I was doing, because people actually happen to like the moveset unironically, but for myself, I don't really think Disney would agree with me of making a moveset for this character in Smash Brothers. But then again, Disney did agree to have Sora in Smash, and I feel like Square Enix has more ownership over it, so but you know what? That's not really my sort of thing. Why did I? The main question is, why did I give this guy a moveset? Of all the characters I could have chosen, why the Club Penguin Avatar Penguin? Why? Why did I do this? Honestly, if I could go back and tell younger me to not make this moveset, I would tell them to not make this moveset. Ugh. But let's be real. It's here. It happened. And honestly, the moveset I remember making for this guy didn't come out that bad. It had quite a few references to his taunts, moves, and heck, he even throws snowballs for his neutral special. At least I think so. The side special was of course the minecart, which from the minecart mini game, which yeah, I know probably gives you guys some Steve flashbacks. But again, let's not focus on the blocky man, who is actually not overpowered because he's not the most broken character in the game, guys. Come on. Sorry, tangent over. Anyways, making the moveset for the Penguin here was actually pretty easy, especially since I actually used to have a Club Penguin account before Disney shut it down. Seriously, Disney, why do you shut down all good things? Club Penguin actually had some sort of niche in a community. Why did you shut it down? Having to make a moveset for this guy was very easy, because making the neutral special a snowball, the side special a minecart, the up special will be the jetpack, and the down special could of course be the one thing that all penguins are known for. Card ninjutsu. Yes, card jitsu. I'm serious. This is a thing that I thought would be a good idea for a down special, and I actually kind of had this idea where it would cycle through the different elements, of course. And there were only 3 elements in the game, being fire, water, and snow. Yeah, snow. Snow of all things. And honestly, the triangle kind of worked for some reason. Snow beats water because cold air can freeze water. Water beats fire because no duh, and fire beats snow because fire melts snow. And the funny thing is that in that one Cardjitsu mini game, if you played a card that was the exact same as your opponent, it would just be a draw. It was the same element, but one was a higher power. The higher power wins. And if it was the same power but different type, then the type that has the advantage wins. Which honestly is very weird how I actually remember that all the time. And there was also these ultimate cards as well. These ultimate cards basically still follow the same rules as normal cards, but they have little fun, cute animations in them, and I think that's just really funny. and and of course the final smash that I made probably you would think otherwise. because the final Smash that I made was that one mini game where you play inside of a scuba thing and you go underwater. You try to get as much treasure as possible. That mini game. The whole screen would fill up with water, and he would just go around. And they would just go around scooping up opponents, and if they scooped up an opponent, they would drag them all the way up to the top blast zone, and it would end up as a screen KO. Then the penguin would just come back to the stage as if nothing happened. And yes, of course, I made one of their victory dances, the official Club Penguin dance. It just wouldn't really work without that, because let's face it, it's been part of our meme culture since the 2010s, and it will continue to be part of it till the end of time, or at the very least until Disney decides to actually remake the Club Penguin games, or the Club Penguin site in general. It would be nice to actually go back and see all the stuff that we missed. And I think all the palettes that I had for this guy was actually very easy, because all the palettes that I had were colors that you can get in Club Penguin, being red, green, blue, yellow, light blue, pink, and I even had this idea where they can wear a ninja suit in reference to the dojo where they learn card-jitsu. Yes, that is the actual martial art that these guys learn, and it's really funny. And to top it all off, honestly, I'd probably say that Penguin here is kind of the Mario of my roster. He's standard, he's standard weight, standard movement speed. Can't really crouch or crouch walk. He can crouch, but he can't crouch walk, and that's about it. Also, I included some of the puffles in the taunts, which makes a lot of sense. And one of the victory animations had all the puffles just gather around their owner, just celebrating, except for the black one. The black one just sits in a corner, like not caring, because, well, he's edgy. Because every group needs that one edgy friend, right? The black puffle was that edgy friend. And also kind of weird how the black puffle turns into the red fire puffle and produces fire, but then turns to a black puffle when it's just bored out of its mind. And of course, I wouldn't really be a good moveset maker if I didn't make some of the grabs and throws feature some of the puffles themselves. With of course the purple one being the one that likes dancing. I think the dancing one would be good for some sort of back throw where the purple puffle will come in, do a head spin, carry the opponent backwards, and send them flying. And the green one, and since the green one likes the jetpack mini game, the green one could appear on top of the opponent, lift them up, and then slam them to the ground, which I think would be a pretty cute and funny animation. Like, honestly, I don't know how nobody thought of these kinds of movesets. Like, I was some sort of genius back then, now that I think about it. But let's be real, I don't think Disney would allow Club Penguin to be in Smash Brothers for the sake of, it's a series that they pretty much shut down and don't really care about anymore. I would love to see references up to this game in your park, Disney. It would be good for all of us. Happy Van Poodle. Oh look, a super obscure Nintendo character that nobody ever remembers because Nintendo discontinued this game. My god, you guys remember when the Nintendo 3DS eShop was a thing? Yeah, me too. Pass the bottle. But in all seriousness, I honestly didn't think I could have enough to make a moveset for a super obscure character like this. And when I decided to make this moveset, I didn't really think I could do it because it just made no sense. But because like you don't really see this character in the game much unless you actually pay for Rusty's game at full price. Now, to explain, Rusty's Real Deal Baseball was a 3DS exclusive game that that actually has two different versions. But both of them play the exact same, so it didn't really matter. They had the Japanese version of Rusty, which looks way different than the American version of Rusty that we know and love, or probably just know and obscurely love because it's an obscure game that nobody really cared for all that much. It was just one of those weird 3DS games that you just play once and then you get bored after 10 minutes and go and play Mario Kart or Smash Brothers. It was basically one of those games. However, for those of us who were actually dedicated to making these obscure games work, honestly, what kind of people were we, to be honest? The thing is, years ago, we actually found out that there were some secret cutscenes that you can activate if you paid full price for Rusty's game. which by the way is 4 real life dollars that you have to pay. Actual money. You have to pay actual money for to get an actual mini to get the mini game that you can then play on your 3DS. And since the Nintendo 3DS eShop is shut down, you can't really get these mini games anymore. But some insane person actually went through with it and played Rusty's Real Deal Baseball and paid full $4 for for every mini game. And they actually found out that if you do so, you actually make Rusty's life a hell of a lot better. Be- because when you do that, instead of haggling Rusty by offering him a donut, you pay the $4. You then get secret cutscenes where you meet this guy. This guy's name is Pappy Van Poodle, and he is a super obscure character that nobody knew existed until he was discovered. And wait, when did Rusty's Real Deal Baseball come out again? Okay, so I'm looking it up, and it looks like Rusty's Real Deal Baseball was released on August 8th, 2013. 2013. It was 2013 where Rusty's Real Deal Baseball was actually put in. And it was at that point that most people kind of figured out that the main gimmick was to haggle Rusty to lower the price until you could probably get it for much cheaper than you would actually pay for. However, doing this leads to a worse ending for Rusty. And from what I can tell, someone actually decided to pay full price, and they found this character Pappy Van Poodle at some point. There was a cutscene that played, and it showed this character, and people didn't know who was this character. What are they? And at some point, we found out that their name is Pappy Van Poodle. And hilariously enough, this was actually the character who had 0 Google results when people first discovered him. And now he is popping up all over the place because now people know who he is. Too bad Nintendo won't put the 3DS games on Nintendo Switch at all. So I guess you could consider Pappy Van Poodle here lost media, or at some point a lost character. And I honestly thought that making a moveset for this guy would be impossible, but then I realized every character in Smash is crafted into some sort of theme, and when it came to Pappy Van Poodle, I thought his theming could be just anything that has to do with Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. Just anything. And I know he's an old dog, and technically he probably shouldn't be acting in any sort of fighting game. But then again, Smash Bros is a game where children can beat each other up. So, and by children I mean like Toon Link, Young Link, Ness, Lucas, and sure they have equipment and superpowers, but they're still kids. So, if they can do that, then an old dog can do it too. And looking back at the moveset, I think I did quite a few good references in the moveset. And some of them actually are references to the mini games that you can play in Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, which all technically are actually just the same mini game, but just a different color palette, and that's it. It's literally just the same games, but different coating of paint, and slightly different rules here and there. But that's about it, honestly. That's all you can really find. and if the person who really discovered Pappy Van Poodle was, well, actually, we don't really know. It was just a random YouTuber that showed off the character, and when we saw them, we didn't really think much. But more on that later. I actually did happen to make most of Pappy's attacks references to the items that Rusty can get from Pappy Van Poodle. Oh, also I should probably mention that Pappy here is actually Rusty's mentor, so it sort of made sense for him, the mentor, to have all the stuff that Rusty needs. And of course I had to utilize his cane in the moveset. It was mostly very improvised. But it was only in the special attacks that referenced actual things that you can do, like throwing up a ball and hitting it with a bat, or something that throws a ball at high speed. Honestly, I don't really know what I did for all the specials. It's such an obscure moveset that I don't think anybody would ever remember it, even if you asked them to try to. And the Final Smash, I don't really know what I did for the Final Smash. I really wish I could go back and look at my old movesets, but I can't. and seeing as it is that way, I guess Pappy Van Poodle is going to remain an obscure character on this roster forever. But at least I did make good with when it came to the color palettes. Happy's color palettes here are these are the ones that I actually drew myself, and all of them came out pretty good now that I look back on them. Now, of course, you got the defaults. Then you got one that references Rusty Slugger himself. And the third one is also a reference to Rusty Slugger, but it's a reference to his Japanese design, which looks extremely different from the American one. Then, of course, the fourth one is reference to Pappy Van Poodle's kimono. And honestly, I don't know what the fifth and sixth ones are. The seventh one is based off of the pitcher machine that throws the baseballs at you. And the last one is, of course, based on the arcade bunny, the one that helps you in the Nintendo 3DS eShop. Since, you know, they're both technically very obscure characters now, since nobody plays a 3DS anymore. It's all either Switch 2 or nothing. At least when it comes to Nintendo people. When it comes to other people, it's either Xbox Series X or Xbox One or PlayStation 5, whatever, or Steam Machine, whatever have you. And honestly, looking back at the palettes, I think I did a pretty good job on them. And not to mention that the moveset is super obscure and it has quite a lot of references that real Nintendo fans would probably really enjoy. Honestly, I don't really know what I was thinking with this guy, but I was thinking it, and here we are now, right here in 2026. I'm talking about obscure characters that nobody remembers from 2013, which was, God, 13 years ago already. I feel so old right now. But, you know, aside from that, Pappy Van Poodle is probably one of the more obscure characters on this entire roster, and I think he's going to remain obscure to this very day. You know, I kind of wish that Nintendo would bring back the 3DS games as a sort of legacy console thing that you can play, and make it free for Nintendo Switch Online users. Don't put it in the freaking expansion pass. I would not be happy. Amaterasu. So yeah, this was a character that I thought would be very cool in Smash Brothers, as being yet another quadruped character that fights on all fours and has mystical powers. So why did I pick Amaterasu of all things? Well, Amaterasu is a female. See, I thought would actually make a really cool fighter because at the time Smash was again lacking quadrupeds, and the only ones we had were Ivysaur and Duck Hunt Dog, and that's it. That is all we had. So making a moveset from Amaterasu was basically a no-brainer. And doing this moveset, I actually thought of Marvel vs. Capcom 3: Fate of Two Worlds. And yeah, I know I didn't actually take much inspiration from that game. I looked into Okami itself, and it is a really beautiful and very artistic game. You basically make powers happen when using paintbrushes. And I guess that's just Amaterasu's power, because aside from having that little flea that guides her every move, or I guess being just sassy in every single way. And the only experience I have with Okami now is actually watching my friend Jakita Lakita play it, and she is actually really good at the game, to be completely fair. And making Amaterasu's moveset, I was actually very convinced on using all the elements that I could. Of course, we have the slicing attack as a jab. We have the elements as specials, a wind element for an up special, or I guess you could also use the vines for a tether recovery, which makes sense too. But I also wanted to implement the vine tether as sort of a grab that she could have, and then the pummel would just have her bite down on the opponent, or just sort of use a slash technique. I don't know. I'm guessing it could work. Though I can't remember most of my moveset when it comes to Amaterasu, because I myself have never played Okami, which I really should. Okami is a really beautiful looking game. And the only experience I got from playing as Amaterasu was Marvel vs. Capcom, and that's it. That's all I had. That's the only experience I had, so I had to just take what I could and do some research on her. Turns out I really like her games, and I want to play them someday, hopefully on this channel. And with all the wacky, cartoony, awesome aesthetic that it had. And now that I look back at the moveset, I think I could have done a bit better when it came down to it. I should actually do a better job remembering each of the movesets that I made for these characters, which I wish I could do if a certain app didn't shut down. Why are all the good and bad things shutting down nowadays? It's I just wanted to look back at my movesets, but nope, I can't even do that. So so making a moveset for Madoratsu was fairly tricky. She was very complex as a character, and I had to stick as many references as I could. And of course, one of the victory animations would be her sleeping there while her little buddy was the little flea guy. I forgot what his name was. Kind of just jumps around, all excited, like excited and happy that they won. And seeing that as a move as some sort of possibility for a move set, and to be fair to the Amateratsu and Okami communities, I really like this character. It's probably one of my favorites that I've made moveset for, and I wish I could go back to see what I did for them. But knowing me, I kind of can't, knowing me, I won't be able to. And if any of you can come up with a moveset for her, let me know. I really want to see what you guys' take on this character would be. Squiggly. And finally, we get to the first actual fighting game character that I made a moveset for. At least I'm pretty sure I did. Honestly, looking back on the moveset, I think I did a really good job with her. And Squiggly is actually my favorite character from the Skullgirls franchise. And looking back on it, I actually had to make this into a little mini series in the entire series of Skullgirls in Smash. Yes, that is the actual name of the mini series. Skullgirls in Smash was a mini series within an actual series. So series set moveset seriesception, I suppose. And making Squiggly's moveset was actually fairly easy, since I actually did play a Skullgirls game. Look at that. Me playing an actual fighting game. Who would have thunk it? And of course I main Squiggly because I was mostly drawn in by her design. And yes, I did read her backstory. She's the last quote unquote surviving member of her family's royal lineage. However, she's not actually surviving, she's dead. And also I should probably mention all of you guys, she's 13. Put your pens and pencils down. She is not of age and she is dead. But so going back to Squiggly's story, she actually has a very interesting backstory. She died when she was 13 years old, and at some point she got this parasite here named Leviathan, who is this big dragon, bony dragon you see sticking out of her head, with a sharp tail poking out. Leviathan is by far is basically sort of the equivalent of an ancient deity of sorts, but not really. He's more of a parasite than anything else. A person, a sort of being that sort of just lives in a host body and until they get what they want. Squiggly here and Leviathan actually do have really good teamwork, and I know that for a fact because I main Squiggly in Skullgirls. Okay, to be honest, I only played Skullgirls a little bit. The most I played of Skullgirls was actually the mobile game where you just tap and swipe, and that's about it. But and use like super moves that by tapping a little button on the bottom left corner. But that's about it. That's essentially the only thing that I can actually do when it comes to playing a fighting game. So making Squiggly's moveset was honestly really fun. To be honest, I got to do a lot of research on frame hitboxes and well, I should say frames and hitboxes because they're technically two separate things. And I even got to think of ideas for what could be her down air and her up special and pretty much everything. All her command inputs would also be implemented, which makes a lot of sense. She's from a fighting game, so why not have command inputs implemented in the fighting character? So essentially, she works a lot like Ryu, Ken, Terry, and Kazuya currently, and sharing the DNA with the same Shoto characters. Of course, she would have the. I'm saying a lot of these. What I'm trying to say is she would work the exact same way. So she would have in one-on-one fights. She would have an auto turn, which basically means she always faces the opponent regardless of what side they're on, and you have to be sure to implement your inputs correctly depending on what side she's facing. And I was actually able to do a lot of research in some of her attacks, and I actually made her down air an unused attack that was never used in Skullgirls at all. It was just this one down this one downwards attack where she extends her arm downwards, and Leviathan would take a quick bite downwards as well. So, and of course, her specials would have their up special be the Dragon Punch, which, funny enough, is a reference to Ryu's Shoryuken. And the down special would be this little tailspin charge that you can do that actually affects her neutral special, which has Leviathan bury his tail in the ground, then poke out a couple times to hit the opponent. And yes, it would technically be a multi-hit or a single hit depending on how long you charge it for. Oh my god, my brain is getting all sorts of jumbled right now, but trust me, I know what I was talking about when it came to Skullgirl's characters, and Squiggly was the first one I wanted to do. Not to mention the palettes that I thought she could have. Well, I didn't really make any palettes for her, but so I just sort of used the first 8 palettes that she had in her home game and just called it a day, because I thought that would work just fine. And in Skullgirls, characters have well over 16 different color palettes that they can use, so naturally I had to pick only 8, and I just used the first 8 in that list, and that was it. That is all I did for her, and it just works. And yes, the flame color that she would have for in her forward smash would change depending on what color alt you use. And I like attention to detail like that. It's very cool. And of course, the victory animations would be very fun too. One of them being that one taunt where Leviathan forms a chair with its tail. She sits on it, and just calmly pets Leviathan under the chin. You know, the same taunt that she has in the game. I believe it was called Snake Charmer. Yeah, that's what it's called. It was called Snake Charmer. And I believe her final smash would be that one final smash where she kicks up the dirt, buries the opponent underneath, and a flower sprouts up, and then a coffin sort of just drops in from the top, hitting the dirt and dealing damage and launching the opponent. It wouldn't really be a cinematic final smash, more so it would just be a one-hit sort of thing. But I really liked making this character, and I also designed her grab to be a tether grab. At least I think I did, where Leviathan would poke his tail out, grab the opponent, pull them in, and you know, it just makes sense. Or her final smash could also be the Shungoku Satsu, which of course is a reference to the Shungoku Satsu, which is Akuma's finishing move from Street Fighter. But instead of doing multiple hits, she would just grab the opponent, Leviathan would burn them with scorching fire, and then launch them away. And of course, it would be an immediate KO if they were over 100%. Which, let's face it, if you're over 100% in a Smash Bros. Game, you're probably going to be KO'd by anything, unless you're heavy enough, like Bowser. But speaking of heavyweights, big band. So yeah, I did another Skullgirls character immediately after that. Yeah, I know, it doesn't sound very original, but trust me, I was actually on something while I was making these movesets. And I thought, hey, you know what? Skullgirls movesets are pretty fun, so why not do another one? So I did another one. And I did it, of course, with my second favorite character in the game, Big Band. And honestly, Smash kind of needs more heavyweights. The only heavyweights we have, as far as I'm aware, are King K. Rool, Donkey Kong, Bowser, and of course Ganondorf. Oh yeah, and King DDD. He was also a heavyweight. I kind of forget that he is. But other heavyweights in DLC is just rare, to be honest. We don't really see many heavyweights in Smash because there's very few of them. In fact, I think I only counted like 5. So I thought making a moveset for Big Band would make sense since he's a heavyweight with a high combo potential ceiling. And having combos as a heavyweight is something you really need, to be honest. And giving it to someone like this, you're pretty much just asking for trouble. Big Band was just another one of those complicated characters, kind of like Squiggly. So he has pretty much the same perks and setups. He has auto turn in 1v1 fights. He has control. He has command inputs, and of course, he has his own varying movesets. The one that I made just has a lot of references to what he does, because his whole shtick as a fighter is that he's a big band. He literally traps you in a bell, rings it to give you an earache, hits you with horns, trumpets, cymbals, drums, pretty much anything you can think of that has instruments. He has it, and not to mention that his voice is just really, really good. And well, I don't really know what else to say. He's kind of just in the same boat as Squiggly, so he's just another Shoto character with an auto turn and command inputs. But the difference here is that he's heavier. He's honestly probably the heaviest Shoto on on this list. And honestly, I don't really know if Shoto is the term I should be using. More, let's just say he's one of the cooler fighting game characters that I have, and I really enjoyed making his moveset. Even though it was technically for a mini series that was part of the bigger series, I promise it means something. And getting to and the same on the same boat as Squiggly when it comes to his color palettes. I just use the first 8 from Skullgirls and including his default, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. It doesn't even have to have any real references to anything. So it would also make sense for me to just be kind of lazy. But when it comes to like characters like Ryu and Ken, their costumes are based on like their light punch, heavy punch, light kick, or heavy kick like colors, I suppose. But because of Big Band, I just use the first 8 palettes and that's it. But I know that sounds lazy because it is. But trust me, I did my best when it came to this moveset, and doing all the moves and doing research on each one was just made a lot of sense. Heck, again, this is another moveset that I was actually able to use actual frame data and hitboxes that I could visually show because he's from a fighting game. So yeah, basically the same as Squiggly. Big Band here is just one of those characters I wish they could have put in Smash because having a heavy character with combo potential is actually kind of scary. And I don't know if we'll be able to see that in Smash someday, but damn it, I really want to see that in Smash someday. Buddy! So this character is pretty interesting. I honestly kind of thought I wouldn't know much about this character at all because, well, first off, they're from a very obscure RPG called Lisa the Painful and its sequel, Lisa the Joyful. Both of which are RPG games where you take turns attacking each other, that kind of game. But Buddy is from a much more dark RPG. It's much darker than anything I've ever seen. And honestly, you could ask me about it, but I would not be able to tell you anything about it because I have no idea. I've never played Lisa the Painful or Lisa the Joyful at all, but I've looked up the moves when it comes down to it, and it just makes sense to give this character some sort of spotlight. Mostly because she's always overshadowed by the other main character of Lisa the Painful and Lisa the Joyful. I think his name is Brad? I'm pretty sure that's what his name is. Now Buddy here is actually the daughter of the previous main character, Brad. So it only makes sense for her to have his similar killer instinct. And honestly, she kind of does. Having a very deep list of moves from Leech Bomb to Joker Strikes to Men to even her Wild Strikes were a pretty interesting concept for an up special, which I guess would be the same as Mii Sword Fighter's up special Wild Slashes, but I don't know, it just doesn't really feel right. Right, but Buddy would of course be one of those very wild card characters where you don't really know what she's going to do next. And I think I also may have stuck a gimmick in there where each of her attacks have a tiny chance to critical hit and do more damage than they usually would. Not double damage like in actual RPGs, just slightly increased damage, right? Like 1.5 times, I'd assume. So looking back on the moveset and actually looking at the screen here that I have in my hand, like I'm actually looking at her moves, and I do remember making some of these moves, her smash attacks, her tilts, her aerials, and I had to do a couple of innovative attacks as well. And of course, the final smash would of course be her final stab, which just makes sense. It's called Final Stab, and to be honest, I think Final Stab would work similarly to Marth and Lucina's critical hit, where Buddy would hold her sword up, not in the same fashion as Marth and Lucina, but in a more like wild, bloodlust kind of stance, and then charge forward immediately, and anyone who gets hit by it will take a lot of damage before being sent away. Well, not a lot of damage, probably the same amount, like 60%, I'd say. and maybe reduced to 50. I don't really know. But look, but I think Buddy here is probably one of the first RPG characters that I did for a moveset, and it came out pretty well. All of her taunts were references to to her game, or I guess her game, because she only stars in one and appears in the other as a baby. And I think the cloak that she wears actually comes from her mother. And the brown cloak comes from her father, and the pink one that she wears underneath comes from her mom. And I actually did end up making some full-on alternate palettes for Buddy, and I'm extremely proud of how they came out. Especially when I actually, had to do research of different characters that are so obscure that I highly doubt anybody would remember them unless they actually played Buddy's game. So, if I can actually find them. Wait, where did I put them? I swear I had them in here. Oh, here we go. Without further ado, Buddy's alternate palettes that I actually made, and I think these came out pretty good, to be honest. All these are references to different characters, of course, and trust me, if you asked me what each of the character references were, I couldn't tell you. Except for the default is just her defaults, but the brown cloak could also just be a reference to her dad. The pink cloak here could be a reference to her mom who had passed away after she was quite a while after she was born. And the rest of them, I actually have no clue. I don't really remember what the rest of these palettes were referencing, but I do like how they came out. They were really well made, and I did very good when it came to making these. Not to mention the scar here, the scar that's on her face that's all bandaged up does change color a little bit, but only for like one alt, and that's it. And I think my favorite one I've done was probably the green with white polka dots. I actually didn't think I would be able to do that correctly, but somehow I did, and I'm very happy that it came out the way that it did. So honestly, tell me, what do you guys think about these palettes that I made for some of these characters so far? Let me know in the comments, and what palettes you would give some of the characters that I didn't give. Anyways, moving on to the next one. Shrek. What was I thinking when I was younger? Okay, let's be real. Let's be real. All of you out there, raise your hand if you jokingly put Shrek during the fighters ballot. Come on, I see some hands out there. I know y'all don't have to lie. Okay, but for real though, I want to make it so that each row had some sort of joke character in it that wasn't meant to be taken seriously, and this one is meant to be taken the least serious out of my entire moveset collection. Yes, I somehow, some way, made a moveset for a movie character. I don't know how I did it. Somehow I just did. And it actually came out pretty good, to be honest. It was actually an honest attempt at making a funny joke character that no one was meant to take seriously, and a lot of people actually found it pretty funny. I'm glad some people didn't roast me for making a moveset for this character. But now that I think back on it, I probably wouldn't want to actually. I wouldn't actually want to make a moveset for this guy ever. If I had to redo my entire roster, I would not include any characters that were meant to be jokes. So essentially, I would remove characters like Shrek over here and Jacksepticeye. And seeing how he did the moveset back then, I honestly couldn't tell you what I made for his palettes. And honestly, one of them probably would have been a reference to Human Shrek, which would have been so cursed. I don't want to see that, man. It's so cursed. I don't really know what to think about it. But aside from that, I made his moveset as just a joke. It was just a joke. It was full of references that were pretty fun. And yes, his back throw was that one time that all of his throws were actually just the things that he does during the wrestling match scene, which from the first movie, which I thought were really funny, and somehow it just sort of works for a moveset. It actually had me laughing quite a lot, just like the movie itself. Because again, this is not meant to be taken seriously. And yes, Shrek himself has actually had his own games, funny enough. He's had a game based on the second movie, which I did play. It was for the GameCube. And I actually didn't know this, but Shrek actually has a fighting game called Shrek Super Slam. And then the hilarious part is, the funny part about this is that Shrek Super Slam has an official tier list of what characters are good, and the main character is only a B rank. The best character in the game was a double S ranked Red Riding Hood over here, who was banned from all competitive play. I'm not kidding. There actually was a 2019 tier list, and the main character isn't even that good. Oh my god, what was I thinking with this character? And what were they thinking making this game? Seriously though, Red Riding Hood was probably the most overpowered thing in that game. I'm pretty sure there's a video out there that just talks about why she was overpowered. But I think it's because she had the one infinite that she can do on every character, and it's inescapable, and you can't beat it, and she just wins no matter what. This is why we check characters and make sure that they're not broken before we turn them in. Oh, but yeah, making a moveset for Shrek on my moveset series was actually pretty funny, and I actually got to do research on the fighting game itself. And yes, his final smash is a giant green fart cloud of flatulence. Why would it not be? It's essentially just a souped up version of Wario's down special. You think Shrek and Wario would actually get along? I don't know. Probably. Oh, Jam and Earl. Okay, so this character was actually the first duo character that I had to do. And making the moveset for these two was actually pretty fun, considering that there are two characters in one moveset. And yes, they both have two different movesets. Well, kind of. They both have the exact same up special, which yeah makes sense. They're both from the same exact game. And since they're a duo fighter, they do share a damage percentage. So and also, I believe I made it sort of a gimmick where when you get KO'd as one, the other will step in from the background while the one that you got KO'd respawns as the well, actually respawns behind the character that you just KO'd. Or well, okay, so to be honest, it was completely confusing. I sort of wanted to deal with them similarly to how the ice climbers function, but having them both on stage fighting at the exact same time just didn't make sense to me. So I decided on the idea of treating them similarly to Pokemon Trainer, where you can switch between two, obviously, and of course they do share a damage percentage, but and when you KO one of them, the other one will step onto the stage while the second one sort of respawns in. At least that's how I imagined it in the first place. And having them be, I also wanted to have both of them have different specials. Of course, their down special allows them to switch between each other. Their up special is the Icarus Wing, are their own version of Angel Wings, and yes, the Angel Wings also have a factor of randomness to them. So, depending on which Angel Wings you either get a good recovery or a not as great recovery. And just so you know, yes, ToeJam would be the lighter one, while Earl would be the heavier one, and harder to KO as well. Also, the switch move that I gave them would only work on the ground. It does not work in the air. They have to be both on the ground and next to each other for the switch to work. Or well, kind of, but to circumvent them being too far from each other to do the down special, I made it so that if they're too far from each other, the one who's not fighting will just teleport to the other one. So it's a lot more streamlined like that. So of course I also have to make the rocket skates their side special, and the neutral special. I think I made it the final smash was the boombox. I remember that very well. The boombox essentially causes uncontrollable taunting all around a fixed area, or I guess as big as Final Destination, I suppose, so that Earl and Toja can go in and get some KOs and deal some damage here and there. and just so you know, it only works on the ground. So if you're in the air and the boombox is going off, you won't do any uncontrollable taunting. So and I think that's pretty much all I can think about when it comes to their actual move sets and their attacks. Not to mention that other aerials would actually make sense. Since of course Toujin would utilize his legs for his down air, the neutral air would have Earl utilize his whole body, kind of like in a similar vein to Wario, I think. And now that I think about it, I actually kind of wanted to Toujin and Earl to also have two designs when it came to their palettes, but at some point last minute I decided against it, and Well, these were the palettes that I decided to think up for for the both of them. And yes, each individual color actually does reference a character or enemy from their home game. Like for example, one of Toe Jam and Earl's alternate palettes gives Earl the colors of the Conquistadors, while Earl gets the colors of actually I don't remember. I'm pretty sure they're Boogeyman colors. At least that's what I think I gave him. I don't really remember. But I do remember that the fifth alt here is just a palette swap between the two, and the last alt is a reference to their classic attire. You know, how they looked before they got their remake of Back in the Groove. So I actually want to know, what do you guys think about these palettes? Did I do good on these ones? So let me know in the comments what you think, and also what palettes you would probably give these guys. So, so anyways, moving on to what should be the last character of this video. Devil. Devil is probably the most fun character that I made moveset for. You see, Deltarune was actually super new at the time, so of course I had to play it myself. And if you guys haven't played Deltarune's chapters 1 through 4 already, then I recommend you go and play the there. But technically, you only need to play chapter 1 to understand Jevil. So Jevil, as the name suggests, is a jester, is a devilish sort of jester, and of course his Smash moveset would reflect that in some way. And honestly, making the character's moveset was very fun because I actually got to fight him in Deltarune, and I took a lot of inspiration of his attacks from there. It just made a lot of sense. And yeah, quite a few moves I had to pick were carefully innovated just to make his moveset work. But once it did click, I felt like I rediscovered rocket jumping in Team Fortress 2, which is not something I say lightly. So looking at the moveset that I remember giving him, and trust me, the later we go into the roster, the much more I'd be able to remember a character's moveset. So, remembering Devil's moveset, I do remember giving him lots of hearts, spades, and diamonds for some of his attacks, including his aerials. He of course has a teleporting up special, and which is the only way it makes sense because he teleports all around the entire battle arena when you're fighting him in Deltarune. And not to mention, I think I'm more proud to present the alternate colors that I gave him when I was making his moveset, and I was actually able to draw them, thankfully, before Amino shut down. And I'm gonna be real with you, I'm actually very proud of the alternates that I gave him, because all of them, of course, are referenced to Deltarune and Undertale, and you know, just some of the characters that appear in the games. So of course his default is, well, just how he looks generally. But then the next three alts are references to Chris, Susie, and Ralsei. After that is a reference to Lancer, then a reference to another secret boss from Chapter 2 that we all know and love, Spamton G. Spamton. The black and white alt is a reference to the battle screen from Undertale, and of course the last one has, I don't really know what I'm referencing. I could say it was referencing a pumpkin, but from my perspective, I think this is actually, I made it a reference to Shawm, the shopkeep that you find in Chapter 1 of Deltarune. And I'm really happy with how all these alts turned out. They look really good, very creative, and again, I know I'm the one that drew them, so of course I'd be a bit biased. But honestly, I think I could have done them a little bit better when it came to making his alts. But you know, aside from that, I'm very happy of the alts that I made for him. I'm very happy with the moveset that I made for him, and it just sort of works as a character in general. Like, would you guys want to see any of these characters in Smash? Like, especially Jevil here? Do let me know in the comments what you think. And with that, I think that's actually gonna do it for this video. Personally, the second row of characters was one that took a lot of research and undertaking to do, but once it did click for all of them, it just sort of made sense. Except for Shrek, he doesn't make sense being in this roster at all. But I made a moveset for him because it was funny, so I'm happy with the way that it turned out. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like, comment what you think, share this video with your friends, and be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss a single notification. I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.